Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Talking Crap podcast. I'm Lucas Jackson, your host, joined with me, of course, the lovely co-host, Jaddy Josh. How are you doing this week?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. Going a bit stir crazy.
Yeah, I think aren't we all at that? We're at that stage of the lockdown, I think.
The third lockdown.
Yeah. The threequel. We are today, though, we're going to be talking about a county which we know quite a lot about. We give the viewers some facts, though, so we can just warm and whet their appetite. We're talking about the county that had the first radio broadcast. Is that ticking anyone? We're talking about the county that has the largest coastline in all of England, 350 miles.
Dirtiest as well.
Yeah, definitely. We're also talking about this is one people might get it from. It's home to the Queen herself, well, Dame Helen Mirren, that is, and of course the JSA. We're talking about Essex. We're talking about wrestling in Essex, and it's a fantastic account. This is where obviously DKW we do our shows. We have a lot of our.
Where I was born and raised.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. A lot of our guests that we've had on have been part of the DKW roster are from Essex. I think the exception being Sam Dufresne, I guess, because he's from Kent. But yeah, it's
might as well be Essex.
Yeah, it's basically Essex version 2, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a county that we know and love the best. And to help us talk about wrestling in Essex, we are going to be joined by Taylor Essex, well, man formerly known as Taylor Essex, now known as Taylor James, and a good friend of both myself and yours. We're joined by Taylor James.
Taylor James, whose name you've already said 3 times.
I know. Okay, so we're joined by Taylor James, and we're discussing wrestling in Essex. And I mean, so now it's over to you, Mr. Porter, as it is Part 1 promo challenge time.
Okay, right. So, as you may have seen before, I'm not sure if you've watched the podcast yet, Taylor.
Bits and bobs.
Bits and bobs. Have you seen the Pipe Bomb promo challenge yet?
No idea.
No. That's good, because I like this being a surprise. So it's pretty simple. The way it works is I'm going to give you a topic. You're going to give us a promo. And you're going to get scored out of 10. 5 points by me, 5 points by Lucas. And if I'm correct, you are on Team Lucas for this episode. Which pretty much means at the end of the season, whoever's scoring for each team will come back for a challenge of some form.
Okay.
So, are you ready?
On like 3 hours sleep? Not really. Let's go.
It's fine. Neither were anyone else.
No.
Right. So, your topic is pretty simple, really. You are at DKW Demolition, challenging for the Showcase Championship against Danny Black and Joe Lando.
Okay.
Your 1 minute starts now.
So the Showcase title is the only title I've never won. I've definitely beaten Joe Lando in the past, and I haven't done one of these in ages. Talk. This is why I have tag with Torino. I just need Jack being here, like little and angry, and shouting at everyone. So yeah, I'll beat you both. Can we actually do this match? That'd be sick, to be fair. Like, I know I'm going off topic and this promo isn't very good. We're going to do this. I think we should. So that's my promo. It's not a promo. I'm calling you out instead. Let's do that match. One of us needs the showcase first, but then we'll have the match. Yeah. There you go.
Do you know what? Do you know what? I can't help but give that a decent 3 for effort, because like the promo wasn't very good, but you turned it into a call out. Like,
yeah, so
like, you can't lose points for that. Like, you've lost points for time, but this is about it.
I feel like
I liked how like literally you broke the fourth wall. You referred to it as a promo, which is really amazing. Imagine you see it on like Raw, like Randy Orton, just like, I'm doing a promo now. But it's just such a you kind of thing, I guess. So yeah, I'll go for 3 as well.
Like, so you've been backstage before when I plan like a 15-minute match where literally every everything's planned, which I've done before, which is a bit dumb sometimes. And then you go, oh, can you like talk on the mic for 30 seconds beforehand or after?
It's like...
And then I either refuse or I'm like, I'll spend an hour working on that 30 seconds and then don't write and then you know what I mean? Just you can tell if I look stressed backstage because I've been asked to talk. That's why. If it's just a match, I'm fine. Go for it. Like, I remember once she was like, "Can you not wrestle on this show, but can you do a talk show segment?" And I was like, "Okay." I remember doing that.
Promos are really like Marmite in wrestling. I think people either love them or they hate them, and I think you're in the group of people that hate them.
I hate them. That's why I have Jack, who just loves them. But I don't think he loves them. I think Jack's just more of like just insane generally. So it helps.
Yeah, it helps being a tag team where you can just talk. But anyway, she got 6 points out of possible 10.
That's good. What did Lalo get? Can I know? Who's
3?
I mean, Essex is such a fantastic county to wrestle in, and to do shows in front of. To be fair, before that though, like we're talking about introduction to wrestling. Like obviously, it has to have begun somewhere. So coming first to you, Tay, like how did you first find out about the world of wrestling?
Well, I think I was on a podcast before, so I'm pretty cool. I can openly say it now. I was working at a club, and I met someone at the bar who was a wrestler, and he was just talking about wrestling. And then the other guy at the bar was the one who mentioned it to me. He's like, "Oh, this guy's a wrestler." So I was like, "Oh, that's cool." Then he was trying to get us to come along, and we agreed that we was going to go. And then it was one of those things that I was like, yeah, whatever. And then I ended up one day just having nothing to do, and then the guy messaged me out of nowhere. So I thought, yeah, actually, I'll give this a go. And that was like 5 years ago. So that's sort of how I got.
Did you watch wrestling before though, as a kid? Or
I watched it for like a year when I was a kid. I watched the whole Jeff Hardy CM Punk feud, and then I stopped watching when Jeff Hardy left because he was my favorite.
A lot of people do that though. A lot of people do that. You know, that's why they try when stars leave, so they stagger them leaving throughout the years. How about you then, Paula? When did you first get into wrestling, or watching it, or?
I'd heard about it loads. Like my friends were raving about it at school. This was back when I was in primary school, so majority of my life. And then I was scrolling through the TV channels. Do you remember Bravo?
Yeah.
So Bullseye was on, and I saw after that it said TNA Impact.
Yeah.
I'm like, I haven't got a clue what that is. I want to know what it is. Watched it. Turned out to be TNA Impact Wrestling. So I've been watching it since then, pretty much.
Yeah, and did you go to shows, either of you, in Essex, like before stepping in? I guess you're not, and I guess not for you, Taylor, because you said you didn't really watch it.
Nothing really. I think it was on when I was at Butlins once, but I can't remember. I was so young. But maybe a Butlins show, but I can't really remember.
Yeah, I think everyone in England has probably seen or been a part of a camp show at some point, I think.
Yeah.
That's into wrestling. Obviously, it's into wrestling. I don't think. What about you, Paul? Have you been to? I guess you've been to shows before.
I hadn't been to many because my parents aren't really into wrestling. So around about the time that I was really into it, I never got to go to any. But in Great Yarmouth, like a Butlins one, but it wasn't Butlins Resort.
Yeah,
there were wrestling shows there, and we'd go to Great Yarmouth every Halloween. And without fail, if it was on, I would have gone because it was a free show.
The thing is, I think when you're a kid that likes wrestling, you end up becoming just the wrestling kid anyway. So like anything wrestling, people just kind of go, "Oh, he likes that, so you must know it." Do you know what I mean? The amount of times you hear that, "Oh, so you're a wrestler, you must know so and so." It's like, well,
or the amount of WWE birthday cards you get.
Yeah,
every year. My dad gets me a WWE Roman Reigns birthday card every year.
Or before the games were completely shit, it was always getting the 2K or the WWE game for Christmas every year. It came out in like November.
That is literally pretty much a tradition. I will get one every single Christmas without fail.
What did you get this year? Did you get Battleground this year? Because there's no main game.
Yeah. I was like, I'm not really bothered, but like it's a tradition. I have to. I have to honour it. It's not that bad. Like, people complain about it, but Battlegrounds is surprisingly entertaining.
I have a slightly stranger Christmas tradition, like present I always get.
Go on.
I always get a Peter Andre calendar every year.
Really?
Yep, every year.
Did you used to be a fan of Peter Andre then?
I made a joke one year. I said to my mum, like, what do you want? And I didn't know. I couldn't think of anything. And I thought that'd be funny as a thing to say. And then never thought of it again. And then I got one. And then every year I've got one. And I think last year it was my wrestling date calendar. I used it as that. So
makes sense.
Yeah, we're gonna get more into that in a bit. I was talking about obviously getting into it. The reason why I want to get into it is say that because the Essex crowd is notorious for the fans really being into it. I think, like, obviously, we're all going to be biased here because I'm assuming we've all wrestled / been in Essex more than we've been in other parts of the country. But I think that the Essex crowd, like, they're so unique. Like, they've got a sense of humour. It's very banterous. Obviously, it's been a while since we've had proper live shows. Obviously, but what is it? Do you think, Taylor, makes Essex crowd just so good to be in front of?
I think it's like the confidence in the crowd as well, because like even like the younger kids, typical Essex kids, like they'll say anything to anyone, which is good for a wrestling show, especially when they're like believing in it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's one of the things, like, because you get so many people in Essex I see go to different shows, so you'll see them at different shows, and like. And I know in other places I've been to, these people I've said they're like, oh, they only go to this one company. Like, they only go to here. And so I don't know if it's just because there's so much going on here, but I find that it seems like the people care more about the wrestling and just want to be at wrestling shows. It doesn't really matter what it is. Like, they're just going out there more. So
yeah,
that's what I've noticed anyway.
Yeah, there aren't really any loyalists in Essex. They just watch wrestling for wrestling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think as evidence when obviously in the past few years, TNA came here a few years ago, and so did NXT UK more recently came to Essex, and it was a case that, even though they were bigger shows, to the name value, it's still a case of the Essex shows were still able to draw really well, like, around that, because people are happy just to be like, I want to go and see wrestling in Essex, whether it costs me 30, 40 quid with NXT, or whether it costs me a tenner at a smaller promotion, like, we're not too bothered. But I definitely think the Essex chants, and like you said, I think, Taylor, like the crowd and like all the kids, like from young, are really into it. But I think sometimes when you go elsewhere, it takes them a little while to kind of get more used to it. And I love personally, like, when they believe it, that's when I love it. I think when that age you can get them when they're, well, obviously when they can interact with you and also believing in it too. So if you're a good guy and like they care about you when you get hurt, or when you're a bad guy and they really, really don't want you to win, that's the age group I really love. We have a lot of, I think, we have a lot of that age group in Essex that are coming to the shows, and it's just, I think that's what really helps. So, like, this is to touch people, obviously are just fans or whatever. They may not understand, obviously, that as much as we love and adore Essex and the shows like are getting big, when they were happening, they were getting bigger and bigger and bigger, or is it's still very grounded at this level, so like when we're doing shows, it's not just it's not just like, it's not really like superstar treatment, you know what I mean? And so I thought, would you just time to share, like, what a show day kind of is like kind of what goes through our minds, whether we'll start with you, Taylor, how unique it is to be like part of a show in Essex.
Yeah. So we talking like first thing, like all the way through?
You can touch upon bits and pieces.
So first thing I always do is wash off the disgusting fake tan I put on the night before, like the first layer of it. Yes. I washed off the first layer of it. So I'll do that, and then it's sort of make sure I've got my stuff, double, triple check that I haven't forgot like a kick pad or something. I've done that before. And then it depends on like getting times and everything and where it is or what's going on or things like that. Then it's normally go grab Torino, get lost on the way there because Jack's sat-nav skills are appalling. And then get to the show, obviously set up, and it's one of those things like with the Essex shows, I find that we get, it's obviously a lot of the same people. A lot of the same people do a lot of the shows, but it's one of them things like we all seem especially if it's one that's close to me, I'm a bit more relaxed. Like I know where it is. If I haven't got far to travel, it's obviously a lot easier. But then yeah, show day, it's just I find it really chill and I laugh and then go over stuff. And I don't really sort of get into the mindset of like let's get all this stuff going because I'm more like hyped about seeing everyone and just. But then as soon as I say, depends on where you are on the card. If you're on first, there's no point getting ready at doors. But normally, if like I'm on later on the show, then I say as soon as like doors hit, then it's time to start thinking like getting in them ready for the match and things like that. But where other shows, I'm just focused on the match the whole time. Like when it's, that's why I'm there. So it takes an element of like seeing your mates out of it a bit more when it's the local ones anyway.
Yeah, I think as well, something you touched on there, like people might not realise it's a full day thing, using these shows now. Like obviously, people that maybe into other sports, such as football, basketball, whatever it might be, like you will literally arrive sometimes 20, 30 minutes for your game, get changed, go and play the game, and basically fuck off home afterwards. But wrestling, it can be like a full day thing. I know obviously you've had some horrendously long trips and you're famed for breakdowns and traffic and God knows what else, but it can turn. How often I can tell you the amount of times I've only when you get a lucky run. Sometimes you're going to be home before like 11 o'clock, midnight kind of thing. But the amount of times you'll be home at like 1, 2, 3 o'clock.
It's insane. Like we done a show once where the game was they wanted us there for 9. So it was an hour and a half. It was still technically like Essex, but we had to get there for 9. It was like it's like an hour, just over an hour's drive. Then the show started at, I think it was because it was a Sunday. The show started at 1. Me and Trino was on first with like 12 minutes, and then the show had like something stupid like 15 matches, and then we obviously waited till the end. It was so much that we went to Wetherspoons twice within the show. Like, we went straight after we got changed. We went after the match and just had like a drink and like a little snack, and then 9 matches later, I was like, I'm going to get like proper dinner now. Finish that, come back, and the show's still going on. And then it's just insane. It's such a long show. Like it turned out like most of the boys just ended up. There was more people in the spoons across the road in the end of it than there was like people backstage.
Bloody hell, yeah. I mean, obviously, I think most of the shows in Essex though do follow a simpler kind of format, but you do get ones which obviously not necessarily don't. Porter, coming to you, like obviously from a more production, fan into production kind of standpoint as well. Like you're one of the people who would, generally speaking, like be there like for a long time too. So you can attest that it's a lot of work that goes into the actual hour, half, 2 hours of actually being in front of a crowd kind of thing. From a production standpoint, Paul, like what was your kind of, when you first started, you've emceed, you've done camera work and stuff for us, like, what was the kind of wake up call, like, oh crap, like, what, kind of moment for you?
I wouldn't say, I don't think I've had that wake up call yet, because I'm still kind of, every time I get there, I'm a little bit like, where do I start?
Yeah.
Because majority of the work that I do is camera work or some form of runner during the show. Like it's once in a blue moon that during an actual show I'll MC or something.
But what I'm getting at is, was you still like shocked at how big an operation it was though? Like compared to maybe what you had before coming into it?
Probably not, no, because I've worked on multiple production shows before. Like I've worked on bigger ones. I was shocked at how similar it was. But comparing it to some of the stuff I'd done before, it was a little bit easier because there wasn't as much to set up. But the effort that goes along with it, because the shows I normally do, the equipment isn't as heavy as a wrestling ring.
Yeah.
But there's more of it. So it kind of balanced itself out. So I'd already had the experience of setting up big shows in the past. So there was no kind of shock factor to how much work went into it. But I do understand that it can be quite a massive blow to someone that had never done it before.
Well, to be fair, like, shows like Cat In, I'd done like shows before and I'd been like a wrestler on the show, obviously. But then when I run my own shows, that first one was like, it was insane. Like I had that wake up moment running the show. Like I've helped put cards together and I've helped do bits and bobs, and Like if you added it all up, I'd run a show, but like broken up, if you get what I mean.
Yeah,
And then when it come to doing it all at once, it was just that was insane. Like I remember because it's all the tiny little things you've got to remember that like normally like obviously like I'm normally used to it being say like Lucas who's the one that's got is it like do that last checklist and make sure everything's done before we start. So being the one that had to do that checklist, it is very much like is very stressful. And obviously like when you was off and we was doing drop kicks, you take the training school involved in that as well, and it just becomes insane.
yeah.
So yeah, I get what you were saying. Like you do get that moment of you're like, oh crap, like there's so much stuff to do. And
Yeah, but I think the reason why I touch upon this so much is because I think, to fans, they might generally think that literally we have a whole setup crew and we have people that come in that are paid to come in and do the ring. It's up like 6 hours early, or we get the venue for the entire weekend or something. But it is literally like a traveling circus would be. We set it up, on the day, with the guys that we've got. Usually on most shows, it is like just the guys on the card. And some shows, like running Essex, can have sometimes 6-man teams, wrestlers. And that with your ring crew, they'll be setting up chairs, they'll be doing, sometimes there might be one of them on doing the music on the first half or something, because, you haven't got someone to do it. And so there is that kind of side to it. But I think the whole general thing is that we love it, and it's shown through Essex really, because so many promotions. Aidan, you touched upon your own, Triumph, obviously DK for us. It's RCWA running in Essex. Is DOA Essex or is it Ipswich?
I think the furthest they go is the closest to us would be Ipswich, which I don't know if that is. Is that Essex?
It's not. It's Colchester, so it might as well be Essex, but not quite.
Is Colchester was it? Oh, I don't know.
Colchester is Essex. DOA is close somewhere nearby. You got World War as well, obviously.
World War is Essex.
Wrestle Force, LDN. There was a few others as well.
Is World War the biggest in Essex? Or is it RCWA?
It depends how you want to balance.
I'd say it depends on how you see it, like because they both do impressive numbers for their shows that they do, but then at the same time it's like
I think they're equal in the stands. Yeah.
I
think they're quite equal when it comes to.
I don't know, because I guess LDN they run Grays, Clacton, a few. Yeah, there's a few that
production scale.
Let's talk about the good ones instead.
Shovels come out. But look, I think at the end of the day, there's so much wrestling happens in Essex. That's the thing I was kind of getting at. And again, I don't want to be biased towards other counties, because I'm assuming that there's a scene in the Midlands, because the Midlands has got so much kind of wrestling. But when you just list out, like we said, we're listing out about 6 or 7 promotions. And by the way, these run regular shows, not just like once, like every 6 months, whatever. We're talking about some of them are running like, once a month, twice a month kind of thing, throughout the county, And I mean, so like you touched upon, obviously, that it's a lot of the similar names that kind of, wrestling on these shows, and at times, like sometimes you see the same names and that. So like, let's pick out some names, and like who do you think? It's hard to say now because obviously there's no wrestling at the moment, but who would you say is to look out for in terms of people that you could people you could be seeing wrestling in Essex?
Was it myself or just generally? As in who I wrestle, or you people who you see wrestling?
Both.
As in for myself, I once wrestled a hit set 3 times within 7 days.
A different promotion.
We have 3 different promotions, yeah. And it was one of those like same as yesterday,
That's like World War's go-to tag match, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we done I think it was World War, Wrestle Force, and then was EWA. I think it was. I want to say, yeah, EWA. I think it was, because we've done it. We've done it everywhere. Yeah, so people I'd always. It really depends. Like it goes in waves. Like I'll see someone every weekend for 6 months and then not see them for a year. It feels sometimes, or I don't know. It's like I see a lot of the SOS boys and then I won't see them for ages. It's really Mayhew. I see Mayhew everywhere.
Yeah, I mean when it gets busy, but when it gets busy for shows, obviously, see all these people quite a lot, don't you?
You see everyone. Brett, I can't get away from Brett. Brett's everywhere. And yeah, I don't know, even like people like Lando, who's even not even from Essex, but does a lot down here. You get people that are willing to travel as well to come do. Obviously, we
Yeah.
travel everywhere, but there's a lot of stuff in Essex. Like you're saying, I think loads of people, even people like Bullet, who are all like the other side of London, traveling all the way over, and they're constantly seeing them around this way.
Yeah, I think again, it's that interaction from the crowd. They know it's going to be a loud crowd. I think obviously, you know, London obviously gets a lot of the bigger stuff anyway. So I guess people kind of go like, oh, you know, Essex, you know, let's show a little love to it. But end of the day, like Essex has got some phenomenal like crowds, I think. What about you, Porter? Like, you know, what are names in Essex that you think, you know, people should be watching out for?
Oh, there's so many options. If we're talking about just kind of individuals, just the wrestling in general, I'd say some of the places you need to look are genuinely the smaller promotions. They'll have kind of the underrated talent you've never heard of. But I'd probably have to give it to, like, obviously the Rebellion, arguably one of the most underrated tag teams in the country right now. And that's not just like a personal opinion. That's a genuine, like,
he sings your praises so much.
Yeah. I even wore your merch for this episode.
Oh, thank you.
I'd say Danny Black is someone you need to look out for sure.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
With Triumph, it was he's my go-to person to think of, like, what to use first. Like when we put the cards together, it's sort of like my first thought is, what's Danny doing this show? Like, not can I get Danny on? It's, well, Danny's gonna have to be there. Like, he's one of the first people I think of to put on the shows. Vaughn as well. Sorry, Rohan Blake.
Rohan Blake, yes.
Yeah, like crazy underrated. I've literally called him up and been like, "You're coming to this show with us today," just because I wanted to go, like, introduce him to people and wanted to do stuff. Because I mean, that's been people done that for me. Like, I'm not on like massive shows by any means, but people like your Mayhews have said, like, use this guy, or this guy's good, and then that's helped me. Like, you need that foot in the door with people.
Yeah.
Lucas has done it for me for, you know, like, shows. So if I can, I'll help people like that, like Rohan, who's like insanely good, and it's crazy that he's only doing a handful of shows currently.
Yeah, no, I agree.
You brought me into Triumph at one point for the only show that I was able to do, which unfortunately ended up being the only show that I'm currently able to do because of obviously current situations in the world. But it's less of individuals you need to look out for and more of promotions that you definitely need to keep an eye on, because all of these individuals will show up at one of the promotions at some point.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, really. But I think obviously with Essex, with wrestling in Essex, it's a community, isn't it? And so obviously, and it's just obviously, like you said, with someone like Rowan, it was about getting him talking to those other people. Because if you're not good at talking to other people, you're not really going to get out there. And obviously, Rowan is someone, you know, I've known him for years. You know what I mean? Like from, you know, original kind of Dropkicks days, and obviously he left for a little bit, came back, and hopefully, cross fingers, when we can finally get back to it, he'll be obviously up to some more places, I'm hoping. As obviously, you know, we don't know when it's going to happen, obviously, but we're confident it will happen, obviously, later this year. So we turn our attention then to, like, you know, what we think kind of Essex needs wrestling-wise. And on a positive kind of scale, obviously, you know, I think by the way, before I say this, that Essex is really setting the bar, like, very high. But I still think, you know, that there are some things that, you know, need kind of we can do to kind of improve, obviously, everyone. I think something which obviously I'd like to see happen is obviously more of the smaller promotions working together. I think that's the only way. Sorry, your answer. I think, especially because obviously looking at on a bigger scale of things, you've got obviously in America AEW and Impact working together to obviously try and combat obviously a larger company. And I think obviously why can't we do that at a smaller scale, especially when it's the same area. Like, we're talking about, sometimes when we're talking about different shows, we're talking about 10 minutes down the road. Like, you know, sometimes, and the thing is, I've been guilty of it as a promoter. I've been guilty of it, you know, that, you know, in a nice way, this is the thing, like, I love tennis so much, but we've had obviously our run-ins with certain things, and I've been guilty of it too, and I'm like, I'm just like, why am I book? Why should I book this? Why should I book that? Oh, I don't want this. I don't want that. But then you just start thinking like, well, why not? Like, if we all work together, that could surely make it. Especially, if we're given certain restrictions and what we can do, what we can't do. Again, we don't know how shows are going to appear, how they're going to look when they do come back. I don't know whether maybe you want to expand on what I said or whether you have a secondary answer.
No, I 100% agree because it's one of them things like, how to put it? Well, if we were working together, I think it's better. Like, for instance, like Triumph on RCWA, when it comes to booking the dates and everything, I send them over. Oh, here's the ideas of my dates that I want to put in. I hope so. So that it doesn't clash with theirs. Same with yourself. I always check with you, because obviously, if you're running and then I'm running the same day, it's gonna be a pain. But I think we've proved in the past that there's enough places, like you said, about 10 minutes, for example. Triumph's first show, we drew 110 people the same week as another promotion who ran 10 minutes up the road, who drew, in a much larger venue, drew 400 people. So even if, say, half of the Triumph event punters went to the other show, that's still almost 500 people within a week went to watch wrestling on mid-February, so and we're literally walking distance apart, so it's very like, there's enough going around. And there's
definitely.
even WrestleForce used to run that same area, and they'd do like decent as well. So there's 3 promotions running the same area, and no one was like flopping. No one was really not drawing no one. So that's why I think there's this whole age of this is my area is gone, because proving if the shows are good enough, if people are enjoying it, more people can go there. So why not work together? Why not promote each other? Like, I have no problem in Dropkicks flyers out at Triumph shows or RCWA flyers out, because I know you guys do the same for us. If there was more of that, more of a, obviously there's a community, but then sometimes I feel like that's where it very much it stops, when you need to. It's more about who if we can work together. Like you said, I can't really say it better than you did. Really, that's the key.
Yeah, I mean, it's something which I've been thinking about for a while. Like, obviously, we had all this time off, obviously, to think about this. But it's a case of like, end of the day, if we got a group of people that want to wrestle, if you just, and like you said, just a simple thing, just not booking dates the same day. But in the day, all we're doing with that is instead of giving the chance, instead of giving people the chance to wrestle, let's say 3 times in a month, if you book the same day, they're now going to only wrestle 2 times a month, because obviously they're going to have to choose a show. And again, we're using the same kind of guide. And thing as well, like something which I guess is somewhat missing in Essex is a bit more variety, I think. And then another thing I think, which I think this is definitely going to be for all shows in general anyway, when they do return, is we're going to have to obviously look at ways of accommodating fans that obviously aren't going to be there, because I think for a while, even once things do go back to normal, there are groups of people who might not feel safe, might not want to still come out. And so obviously, we did obviously attempts and tapings and stuff. I know World War did as well, but I kind of think that might be something we'll be doing more of too. I think there'll still be this virtual online audience and this is for all events. So we're talking about it for music and stuff, and obviously people like Dua Lipa and based on the big music acts they've had, obviously no fan pay-per-view kind of shows, haven't they, over the past year? And I think there's more that have been announced. It's just one of those things where I think we learned that our audience for wrestling is vocal, whether they are in a front of a computer, at a show, or stuff like meet and greet, stuff like that. How about you, Paul? What do you think? Is needed from wrestling this year in Essex?
I think as you have already said, it needs that kind of cohesiveness between each promotion, but I think it needs a bit more publicity as well. Like, as well as it being massive in Essex, I think some of the promotions in Essex, if not all of them, could very easily do well online. Like you said about the tapings, like there's lots of opportunities. Because if you look at Demolition, it's drawing just shy of 300 every week. And if you think about it, how many of those people would also go to a show live?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's one of those where, depending on how wrestling comes back, is a thing. But I think it definitely is a section of the audience which, you can't really ignore anymore, because I think you're going to have to accept that there'll be people who won't want to go out still. As sad as that is. But yeah, look, it's been great kind of catching up. And Essex, I think definitely we're going to have like big returns for all promotions, when it is safe to do so. I've got loads of ideas, I've got a whole notebook full of them. Do you know what I mean? I keep adding to, just waiting for the day we can do shows. I know, obviously, I'm guessing, Taylor, we're not going to reveal our plans, but I'm guessing, Taylor, you have some sort of plan when Triumph does return?
I have a card. That's an idea for the first show, pretty much down, and some story ideas. But yeah, it's one of those things like, depending on how long this all goes, it's sort of, that's why in a way, it'd be nice because it would feel like a fresh start without having to start from without starting. It's a fresh start without it being a fresh start, if you get what I mean. Like when it comes back, everything will feel fresh and new without you having to build everything back up from the beginning. Yeah. I don't know. Do you reckon this year though, live shows?
Yeah, I reckon this year. I reckon this year, but I don't think. I think it'd be the middle part of the year, like summer kind of time. But I'm just happy. I'll be happy just when we can get back, to be fair. But yeah, I love Essex. I think we all do, and we're looking forward to obviously our shows returning. If people haven't had a chance to check out Essex shows, like please do. There's loads of them on YouTube, like old ones, obviously, for now to watch during this period, and obviously hopefully when you get back, like some of the promotion we mentioned already, so obviously Taylor's promotion, Triumph Wrestling, you've got DKW, obviously you've got LDN, you've got WrestleForce, RCWA, DOA, which I'm not too sure, I think it's on the Essex border, we mentioned them, Score Slam, so you mentioned them as well, SOS, they run Harwich Way, World War. If I've missed any out, then sorry.
I'll chuck as many links in the description as I can.
I think I covered as many as I could, but yeah, we love Essex. Thanks for joining us, Taylor.
That's right, no
yeah, thanks for joining us. And come up next week, we'll be talking to one Tony Kemp, someone you know very well, actually. One Tony Kemp. He will be joining us to discuss the legacy of the Texas Rattlesnake, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Until then, I've been Lucas Jackson, John Mateo, Josh Porter. Thank you and goodbye.
Take it easy.